Okay, guys, welcome to 8 tips on how to get shredded with big arms. So, exactly as the name says, we're going to talk about how to get a really lean waist, but get big arms in the process. Because I think most men, they want to get lean, but they also want to have big arms. And I was that guy with super small arms back in the day. And I used to get made fun of all the time. My nono, my Italian grandpa, used to always call me muscoli, which basically means muscles in Italian. And he was being sarcastic because I had super small arms. I used to get kind of made fun of my baseball team a lot back in the day because I was a small guy in terms of my arm size. And nowadays, I go to parties and social situations, and people are saying, "Rich, put those guns away." And they're being actually not sarcastic. So it's still surreal to me that I have this complete 180 in terms of having spaghetti arms to bigger arms, but stay lean in the process. So I want to talk to you guys in terms of how to stay lean and get shredded, but have bigger arms in that process. Because, like I said, most men, you want to be lean, but you also want to have big arms to go along with it. And I think anyone can kind of really get big arms if we just eat and train like an animal. And if you're after that powerlifting type build where you get 30% body fat and have, 20-inch arms, I'm not that guy to get you there. So if that's you, maybe you want to click on this presentation. But if you want to get shredded, get down to 10-50% body fat and still grow your arms in the process, then I'm the guy for you. And I think I have 8 great tips for you today in terms of how you can accomplish that. We're talking about a little bit of nutrition, about 3 tips, and the other 5 tips will be kind of more on tips in the muscle, or should I say in the weight room, and that way you guys can really use those tips and use them for your program basically starting ASAP. With that being said, let's get into it right away. So tip number 1, get down to at least 15% body fat. And I shouldn't say at least, but roughly 50% body fat. And I think a major mistake most men make is they want to bulk first when they should be cutting. And I talked about this before, but a lot of men will come to me and say, "Rich, I want to bulk up, I want to gain more muscle." But then I tell them to send the pictures their way, or my way, in terms of their shirt off. And in reality, they should be probably cutting some fat first and then adding muscle after. Like I said before, if you guys want to just eat and get big arms and you're trying to get the biggest arms possible, I'm not that guy for you. But if you want to get like 15, 16-inch arms and stay lean, I can definitely help you with that. So the key first, guys, the very first step is make sure you're getting lean first. Because if you have 25% body fat and you want to add big arms, you definitely can that way, but you're not going to have that lean waist. And again, the purpose of presentation is to talk about how to get lean and have big arms. So tip number 1, guys, get down to at least 15% body fat first. I have tons of information on my content, my Instagram, my podcast, YouTube, on how you can do that. So feel free to take a look at that content. But we're going to talk about the generic tip here is make sure you cut first before you start adding size to your arms. Tip number 2, hit protein targets and not just calories. And again, I've said this line before, but calories will determine your weight, but macros determine how you look. So if you have like a very low calorie diet and you have lower protein, your weight on the scale is going to go down, but you're going to get that skinny fat look. Because as most of you guys know, protein is going to be that macronutrient that helps protect your muscle in a fat loss phase. And if you're going super low calories and you have super low protein, you're going to have that skinny fat type of look. And that's not, again, what we're after right here, right? We want the 4-pack, the 6-pack abs with the bigger arms. So make sure when you guys are cutting, you're hitting your protein targets every day. And again, I have tons of information out there on how to do that. But if you weigh 200 pounds, you want to aim for roughly about 160 grams of protein per day. And it's super important, guys. If you can't do that right away, build your way up to it. But make sure you're focused on protein and not just cutting calories, because you're gonna get that skinny fat look and you're not gonna be happy with your body composition. So calories gotta be in check, but your protein's gotta be in check as well if you guys want to have good, lean, defined arms. Tip number 3, once your cut is done, bulk up. So let's say you got down to your 50% body fat, everything's going great. You lost, let's say, 15, 20 pounds or 25 pounds, whatever it might be. Now it's time to add some size up, right? Let's say maybe 14, 15, 60%, maybe 7% body fat. Now we want to add a little bit of size to the arms, because your arms won't grow in a fat loss phase. Unless you're like a beginner. If you're a beginner, it can happen, or you're a genetic freak, your arms simply won't go up in size in a fat loss phase. And that's why it's broken up into 2 different phases. Phase 1 is protect your arms and your muscle by having, your protein and strength training while you cut fat. And then phase 2 is actually increasing your calories. That way you can add size to your arms. So again, step 1, we're trying to get shredded. and protect as much muscle as we can. And step two is once we lose our fat, now we're trying to add muscle and inches to the arms. And in order to do that, you guys simply have to increase your calories. Trust me, I've tried this so many times in the past in terms of going to a maintenance phase or like a very low cut where I can stay lean, super lean, and around like 165 pounds and have big arms. It doesn't work that way. You guys have to increase your calories in order to get your arms bigger. And don't worry, I know it's scary. You might say you have some extra body fat to lose. You guys can always cut that body fat down the road and still keep this most of the size on your arms, later on. So if you guys want to grow your arms, you have to bulk up in terms of adding more size once your cut is done. So cut first, bulk second. Tip number 4. So now we're actually going to get some more tips in the workouts because I don't want to bore you guys with nutrition. I've talked about that many times in the past. So we're going to talk about some actual arm tips for you, and I hope you guys enjoy this part. So tip number 4, start with arms first in your workouts. So let's say you're doing an upper-lower split, or you're doing like a upper one day, lower one day, chest, shoulders, triceps one day, back, bicep, shoulders one day, and then legs another day. On those days, you have the upper body days where you have arms maybe mixed in. Start with arms first in the workouts. So let's say you typically start with your bench press, but again, you're trying to grow your arms. Start with like maybe a bicep curl or some sort of skull crusher to begin the workout, and then you do your more major compound lifts later on. I know it's a little bit controversial. You might be like compounds first, isolation second, and I totally get that. But the reality and the fact is the muscle that you hit first in the workout is the best chance to grow. Because simply put, if you guys are doing your arms at the end of the workout, your nervous system, your body is already fatigued, and there's just not a lot of stimulus that's going to be placed on the muscles that are last in the workout. It's going to the muscles that are first in the workouts. So if you guys want to grow your arms, you have to do them. You don't have to. I should say you have to do it first, but you should put them first. It's a good tip you can do, and you guys don't even necessarily need to have an arm day. Ideally, you can for sure. I don't have an arm day myself because I don't like working on the weekends, but I do, mix arm days for people in my program because I think most people do enjoy that, and it is more beneficial to have an arm day in your program. But a good tip, like I said, is start arms first in your workout if you don't have an arm day, and even if you do have an arm day on your upper days, start it first, and that way you guys have the most stimulus to the muscles you want to grow. In this case, being your biceps and your triceps. Tip number 5, quality over quantity. So I think when people think I got to get big arms, they think they're going to do like 20 sets of biceps and 20 sets of triceps for the week. When in reality, you don't have to. Anywhere between 6 to 10 sets, even 10 sets on the higher end per, bicep and tricep is usually a sweet spot. So maybe you're doing 8 sets for your biceps a week, 8 sets for your triceps. If you guys go hard within those 8 sets, that's all you basically need. And there's a U-shaped curve when it comes to volume as well. So basically what that means is you need to have some sort of volume, obviously. And when I say volume, not volume, a little spelling error there. When I say volume, kind of think of that as like a set or reps, right? So if you're like another set of 10, that's more volume, of course. So that's what it would be. So you obviously need some sort of stimulus in terms of getting your arms to grow. But there's also that U-shaped curve, right? If we do too much, we basically it goes down. We actually get less stimulus and less growth for that particular muscle group. So you guys want to have that sweet spot where it's not at 0, but it's not like at 30, right? So some are kind of in the middle. And that's why I always kind of prioritize quality over quantity, because if you guys are just doing endless junk volume and you're not really pushing to failure, not really pushing too hard, you're just simply not going to get as much benefits. So I'm a big believer of quality over quantity, maybe 6 to 10 sets for those muscle groups, work them hard, let them recover, let them grow. That's, in my opinion, one of the best approaches you can do in order to grow your arms or any muscle. Tip number 6, add a few more sets for arms if you need to, of course, but take away volume elsewhere. So what I mean by that is, let's say in an upper body session, you typically do 20 sets overall. Maybe it's like 8 for chest, 8 for back, and then, let's say 2 sets biceps, 2 sets triceps. So yeah, maybe a good idea there would to be add more sets for your arms and your triceps or your biceps, triceps, but you would also want to take away sets from your other muscle groups. So maybe instead of doing 8 sets chest, you do 6. Instead of 6 chest for back, or it should be 8 sets for back, you do 6. And then you maybe add a couple more sets on for biceps and triceps. And the workout still equals 20 sets. You're just kind of divvying it up different. So maybe you have 4 sets biceps, 4 sets triceps. And then you have like 6 sets back, 6 sets chest, and some shoulders, whatever it might be. But I hope you guys want to get what I'm trying to say there. you don't want to add just junk volume on top of the end. So if you're typically like 20 sets in a workout and you're like, okay, I got to do more arms, you don't want to kind of take it to 24, 28, 30 sets in the workout. Take away sets from other muscle groups. That way you prioritize the muscles you're trying to grow, in this case being the arms. And that way you have a better chance for recovery, because remember, recovery is half the battle when it comes to working out. If you're just focused on stimulus and how many contractions you do, you're missing the recovery aspects. And if you just do a lot of chest back, legs, calves, or maybe, and it's kind of piled on top of the arms that you're adding onto already, then you're just simply not going to recover as well from those workouts, and you're just not getting as much stimulus to those arms. So hope that makes sense, guys. So back away some sets for those major muscles, add some sets for the muscle you're trying to grow, in this case being the biceps, triceps, and that will be a good benefit for you when it comes to increasing your arm size. Tip number 7, so have a proper structure. And I'm going to give you a very easy bicep curl example. And you definitely don't have to do it this way. This is the way I love to do it. But let's say your first set, let's say you're doing 4 sets in total on a bicep curl. Let's say the first set, you do 12 reps. You would probably want to leave about 2 to 3 reps in the tank, meaning you probably could have done 15 reps, but you stopped at 12. So you had 3 reps in the tank there. So that's the first set, almost like a glorified warm up. The second and third sets, this is where I like jumping to my heavy sets here. So the second and third set, I will jump to my weight, where I can do for 6 to 8, where we really try to overload the structure. So the biceps and the triceps here. So go heavy for 6 to 8 for the curls for the second and third set. On the fourth set, I like to call it like a back off set, where we do it for more control. So we go lighter weight, and then we do it for more control. So more of an eccentric set for 10 to 12 reps. So maybe we got to go fast up. We go 3 to 4 seconds the way down to prioritize the stretch portion of the workout there. And anytime we prioritize the stretch portion of a movement, it typically reflects into more muscle growth, not for all muscles, but for the most part, it's a good tool you can use in terms of increase what's called passive tension, for not to get too nerdy there, but in other words, it can help you grow muscle. So the first set, basically I'm trying to say is, guys, do a bit of a glorified warm up where you have a couple reps in the tank. Second and third, heavy. 4 set, control it for your eccentric. You don't have to do it this way, but this is the way I like to do it. And this is just a way you can implement into your arm routine or your workouts basically right away. And I find it yields fantastic results. And it's also good for your arm care, which we're going to discuss for tip number 8. If you guys like that segue. Okay, so tip number 8, arm care. And I think this is very overlooked when it comes to building arms and even keeping your tendons and your joints healthy. Because the arms and the elbow joint, I should say in more particular, it's very delicate, and we have a lot of tendons that kind of pass through. So we have what's called our common flexor tendons. So kind of think the muscles that all from the pinkies and the fingers here that attach to the middle of the elbow. So kind of like golfer's elbow. It's almost like a degenerative tissues where there's too much load is placed in these tendons, and then it kind of wears down over time. Or on the opposite side, it's the extensor, the common extensor tendons, which kind of attach the outside part of the elbow. And these guys get overused a lot, right? So a lot of gripping work, a lot of curls. If you play golf, you play tennis, whatever it might be, the tendons kind of get overused a lot. And this is why we typically see a lot of elbow issues, because there's just too much stimulus and not enough recovery for the inside part of the elbow and the outside part of the elbow. So this is why your rotator cuff, your shoulder blade, muscles, and the soft tissue, so your muscle around the forearm, are very important to keep intact. So maybe you guys heard the joint by joint theory. I'm not going to go into the rabbit hole too much here, but basically it's if your elbow is hurting, the joints above and below need good mobility and good stability. In this case, for arms, a big player is rotator cuff and your shoulder blades. So if you have a good, strong rotator cuff, it's going to have less force that kind of passes down the elbow. But let's say, for example, a rotator cuff is weak and it's not stable. What happens is more force will go down into the elbow joint. And this is why it's very important to set up exercises that, help get you more stable in terms of your rotator cuff and your shoulder blade muscle. So maybe you guys heard the muscle, the serratus anterior. If not, probably not the best way to describe exercises on this podcast, because it's hard to demonstrate through just a small video here. But what I'm trying to say, guys, rotator cuff, shoulder blade, and soft tissue work. So maybe get a foam roll, mash up some of the tissues in your forearms and your wrist kind of in that area. That's your best bang for your buck in terms of keeping your elbows healthy. Because if you're missing mobility and stability from the joints above and below, whether it may be the wrist or the shoulder, that's where the force comes down to the elbow. And that's where we tend to get that golfer's tennis elbow, and just overall that tendinopathy that can develop in the elbow joints. Slowly increase the weights over time as well and the volume. If you went from doing no arms to doing like 10 sets a week, again, guess what's going to happen? It's a degeneration process or problem, and you're going to have more issues on those joints and the structures around the joint. And once again, it's going to lead into inflammation. That inflammation usually leads into a tendinopathy. And next thing you know, you guys can't curl and you can't do skull crushers and you can't grow your arms because of that. So arm care is a very real thing, guys. I know it's boring to talk about, but make sure you guys focus on those joints above and below, especially your shoulder. And because if you overlook that, your arms, your elbows are simply just going to kind of wear out over time, and you're going to run into those golfers and that the tennis elbow type of issues. So very important. Summary. Okay, so get lean first. We talked about that. You don't have to do it this way. This is the way I do it. Some people like to kind of bulk up first, then cut down. I don't like bulking when people are at 20% or more because I just think it's not a good look. And then you have a ton and a shitload of body fat to lose after. So get lean first. That's the way I do it, at least. Then when you're cut, you guys can eat more after you're cut to gain more inches around your arms because that's the only way to actually grow your arms. And then use the arm tips outlined in the presentation and happy face. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. I know there's a lot of info. I went down a couple rabbit holes there with the arm care stuff, but hopefully it makes sense. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find me, Rich Biker Fit, or just message in the Facebook group, and I can answer any questions you may have there. Thanks for listening. We will talk soon.